Hey guys, so I am now in what is this? The fourth part of the Ottoman Empire Mehmed season. So yeah, we should probably get to it. I don't really have much else to say. I think I exhausted myself enough with the Vlad episode last time. So I just want to say, if you want to watch the original video by Kings and Generals, the link is down in the description down below. And if you enjoy my channel and you want to help me out in any way, shape, or form, feel free to please like, comment, and subscribe. It would really help my small but humble channel grow, and I would appreciate it very much. Thank you. Now, with that said, and now without any further ado, let's get to it, shall we? Let us watch the fourth part of the Ottoman Empire Mehmed series.
The sudden fall of Constantinople to the Ottoman Turks had caused a brief shock all across Christian Europe. 4 months after the Great Siege, Pope Nicholas V issued a papal bull entitled Etsi Ecclesia Christi. In this declaration, the Bishop of Rome described Sultan Mehmed II as a rabid beast and a herald of the Antichrist, and commanded all Christian princes, whether imperial, kingly, queenly, ducal, or other worldly dignity they might hold, to come to the defense of the Christian religion and of the faith with their goods and persons as genuinely and insistently as is possible. However, such a call was to fall on deaf ears. Other than convening a few imperial diets, the Holy Roman Emperor Frederick III was more preoccupied with internal struggles in his realm, feuding with his scheming brother Albert VI of Austria, and butting heads with Hungary. Meanwhile, other major Catholic nations, particularly those in Iberia, were too preoccupied with the Reconquista against the Muslim nations in what is now Spain to
Become a member to access our Iberian Reconquista. Yeah, I noticed that there are some series that I have not been able to look at due to them being under the membership thing. And the thing is, guys, like, I feel like Kings and Generals has some series under the membership banner for a reason, and you're supposed to pay and become a member to watch them. Like the Reconquista series is a good example, and I could become a member for sure, but the problem is I feel like it would kind of be weird. Like he purposely hides these videos behind a paywall, right? I feel like it would be incredibly wrong morally for me to look at them and do a reaction and put them here on my I don't, even if I ever do make like a YouTube member thing, I'm never gonna hide videos, guys. Everything is always gonna be free. But I feel like I won't react to like YouTubers' Patreon exclusives or membership exclusive videos because they're meant to be hidden. I feel like it would be like almost like pirating. So it feels like, to me, it feels like it's morally wrong. So unless he ever releases the Reconquista series for free on YouTube, I won't be reacting to it. It's just out of respect for Kings and Generals. He means these videos to be hidden for his paying members only. I'm not gonna pirate. It feels like it would be pirating, right? Like, it's one thing if I'm reacting to videos that are free on YouTube like this, like this series, for example. It's another if I'm using his paid content. So I won't be touching his paid membership content on this channel. I want to apologize. It's just, it feels like it would be incredibly morally wrong of me. So unless he ever releases it for free, I don't expect the Reconquista series reaction by me. I must apologize to all of you for that, but I'm hoping you can understand where I'm coming from. It's out of respect. And again, I love Kings and Generals. He's my favorite historical YouTuber. I have nothing but the utmost respect and love for him, and if he needs to hide these videos for only paying members, I'm gonna leave it at that. I won't do that, or because I feel like some people would just, oh wait, I can just watch his Reconquista series for free without the thing. I don't know, it'd feel wrong. For me personally, it would feel incredibly wrong.
provide any substantial assistance. At the same time, a war-weary England and France had only recently concluded the Hundred Years' War in 1453, and now the former was sucked into the bloody Wars of the Roses. It appears that
yeah, we covered the War of the Roses and the 100 Years' War from Kings and Generals. Great series. I loved the War of the Roses because it directly inspired Game of Thrones, which is my favorite fantasy series slash world. In fact, I mentioned last video that I was a big Dungeons and Dragons. Um, I used to play Dungeons and Dragons in my teenage years with my friends. And when I was DM, I created this whole world. And like the world I created was took a lot of inspiration from Game of Thrones, like a lot of the politics and some of the power plays, and a lot of the characters I created. Like I mentioned last video that my D&D character Aldrian Stormruler, who was the king of the kingdom that my players inhabited, was inspired by a lot of great military commanders. I put he did campaigns and accomplishments which mirrored Hannibal Barca, Alexander the Great, Vlad Tepes. But in terms of personality, I kind of modeled him after Stannis Baratheon from Game of Thrones, like in terms of kind of being, very blunt, forward, not the most pleasant or flowery person to talk to. Like, his personality was very directly inspired by Stannis. So, again, like, it's another thing. I took a lot of inspiration from real world and fantasy for my fictional kingdom and continent. So, yeah.
Europe was too preoccupied with internal matters to engage effectively against the Ottoman Turks. Even after its great victory over Mehmed at Belgrade, the Kingdom of Hungary found itself preoccupied with domestic strife. To fully understand the dilemmas that Hungary faced during this period, we must first turn back the clock. Back in 1452, Frederick III had been forced by his nobility to end his guardianship over the exiled teenage Ladislaus V of Hungary after a decade of fighting with Buda. The following year, the exiled young king returned to his homeland and was crowned in Buda, while John Hunyadi resigned from his role as regent, instead taking the office of General Captain of the Kingdom. Although his political flair had been very much reduced after his defeat at the Second Battle of Kosovo in 1448, the Hungarian magnate still continued to rule most of the kingdom's many royal castles and revenues. However, the surprising death of Hunyadi in 1456, mere months after his victory at Belgrade, would give Ladislaus and his core supporters in the capital an opportunity to seize power from his family. The king first appointed John Hunyadi's former court rival, Ulrich of Scilly, as the new general captain of Hungary. But yet more inflammatory were his orders to the late magnate's two sons, Ladislaus and Matthias, to renounce all their inherited holdings and revenues to the crown. Instead of bending to the royal order, the elder Ladislaus murdered Ulrich and even captured the king himself during a state visit to Belgrade,
Holy crap.
thus sparking a period of high tension within the kingdom.
My goodness, okay, Ladislaus was released only after agreeing to appoint the other Ladislaus, Hunyadi, as Captain General and pledging not to seek revenge for the murder of Ulrich II. Okay, wow.
Although initially pardoned for his actions, Ladislaus was later charged by the king with treason, and was later imprisoned and beheaded in Buda as civil war became imminent in Hungary. However, before a full-scale war could erupt between the forces of the crown and the supporters of Hunyadi, King Ladislaus V suddenly died at the age of 17 from an unknown disease by the end of the year. With the Albertinian line now extinct and civil war averted, the 15-year-old Matthias Hunyadi was elected to the throne by the Hungarian nobility in the early weeks of 1458, with his uncle Michael Szilágyi serving as regent. Despite this peaceful resolution, the mounting unpopularity of the new king's policy of revoking noble privileges and attempts to build a new centralized army had led to unrest amongst the disenchanted Hungarians.
Yeah, the famous Black Army of Matthias. Biggest problem with it is that it was too expensive, and that's kind of led to its inevitable decline and loss. But yeah, like, it was one of the most formidable armies in history, and I actually did a reaction video. I don't think it's released yet because I do pre-record my videos. Like this series, for instance, very seldomly are you watching videos or reactions in live time. I pre-record months in advance, guys. So I'm literally, let's see, like right now it's like some series that you'll be seeing months, like all the way to like March, will have been recorded in December. So you know, I tend to do this a lot so I can take breaks, extended breaks. But like, it seems like I'm never gone, even though a lot of the videos you see, in fact, almost all the videos you see from me are pre-recorded. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's cool because I'm always having videos on. I take breaks on it. It's like I'm never gone. But it's also a little inconvenient because when new series dropped, it's like I already have videos slated for months. So I might have to like, kind of go with the I'm uploading 2 videos a day to try to capitalize on a newer released series. So it's kind of, it comes with its own problems that I have to deal with. But yeah.
Hungarian nobility. With the dismissal of Regent Szilágyi during the summer of 1459, a new succession crisis erupted in the kingdom as 25 Hungarian nobles revolted against the crown in favour of electing Frederick III as Hungarian king. What followed was a political dispute that lasted 4 years, which gave the Ottomans the opportunity to skillfully annex Serbia in 1459 and vassalize Wallachia in 1462. With Hungary in turmoil and Vlad III defeated, Mehmed II turned his sights to the Aegean, in particular the Genoese island of Lesbos. Since 1453, the Sultan had waged wars of aggression against the various Genoese colonies in the Aegean and Black Seas to strengthen his hold over both regions. In 1454, the Genoese holdings in the Crimean Peninsula were raided, and its regional capital, Kaffa, was besieged unsuccessfully, in partnership with the Crimean Khan Hadja I Giray. In 1456, the Aegean islands of Imbros, Samothrake, Lemnos, Tenedos and Thassos were captured, alongside the mainland settlement of Aenos. Lastly, in 1460, the Black Sea port town of Amasra surrendered to Mehmed's navy during a 2-day siege. Only the last holding of the Genoese Gattilusio family of Lesbos stood in between the Sultan and his desire to control the mouth of the Dardanelles Strait. Disembarking south during the summer of 1462, at the head of a 20,000-strong army, Mehmed first visited the ancient ruins of Troy. There he lamented the destruction of the famous city and expressed satisfaction at avenging the Asian peoples against the Greeks with his conquest of Constantinople. With his immense love for classical history, the Ottoman monarch formed a new narrative, in which his empire became the spiritual successor to the ancient Trojan kingdom of Priam, Hector and Paris. After touring Troy and after many—
Which is what the Romans believed among themselves, you know? Before I graduated with my bachelor's in English, one of my last classes was epic class, and we actually read several epics. We read Dante's Inferno, we read the Odyssey, and we read the Aeneid, which I think the political situation around the writing of Virgil's the Aeneid is
months of preparation. Mehmed launched his military campaign to take Lesbos in early fall of 1462. Crossing with his fleet of 100 ships, he personally led an Ottoman army to Mytilene, the capital of the island, and put it under siege. For over 2 weeks—
Wait, did I explain why the political situation of the Aeneid? I completely forgot. I literally paused the video right now to go downstairs. But forgive me if I repeat, I like have a short-term memory. But yeah, I think the political thing with the Aeneid was, Augustus, kind of wanting to legitimize himself, because even Caesar, like Julius, was like, claiming descendancy from Venus, also known as Aphrodite. And, kind of the Aeneid was to kind of show, like, okay, the Romans are the successors of Troy, and, kind of the prophecy of Aeneid. He would go on to found a great city, and then from that city, Rome would come, and then Rome would go on to conquer the world, so, yeah, it was kind of like, while an artistic thing, because Augustus was trying to create, like, a cultural and artistic, like, movement, it was also kind of political to legitimize him and his lineage and his rule. So again, Augustus, ever the pragmatic politician, but yeah, that's also a big part of the Aeneid and its writing. So yeah.
Turkish forces bombarded the city's fortifications, and despite some initial resistance, the defenders were outgunned and outnumbered, and so surrendered. With the Getulusio family first captured and later executed, the island of Lesbos was annexed, thus eliminating the last Christian foothold close to the Ottoman capital.
Is he getting actors? Because I've noticed this in this series, these random parts where he quotes and then has people. Is like Kings and Generals getting actual actors and live action people to do these parts? If so, I would like to audition Kings and Generals. I'll gladly put on a costume and pretend to be someone. I'm pretty diverse. People think I'm a lot of different ethnicities, like Indian, Middle Eastern, and all kinds of South American and Central American groups. So yeah, I'd gladly be an actor in the background, bro. Like, put me in a costume. I'll do it. This is my audition tape. I'm sorry, I love Kings and Generals, dude. If Kings and Generals acknowledged my existence, it would make my year, or my life rather. I'd be like, he knows who I am. But yeah, like a falcon that falls upon its prey, the Padisha descended into Bosnia with all speed, and the land was taken before its lords had gathered their strength.
A year after his victorious campaign in Lesbos, Mehmed II now turned his gaze to the Balkans, in particular the Kingdom of Bosnia. Since the 14th century, Bosnia had been nominally under Hungary's authority as a Banat. However, over time, it had gradually grown more autonomous. The turning point came with Ban Tvrtko I, a resourceful politician and military leader who, after many years of intrigues against the Hungarians and taking advantage of the collapse of the Serbian Empire, crowned himself as King of Bosnia and Serbia in 1377. He was to be the first ruler of an independent Bosnian state, a culturally and religiously diverse state that included Roman Catholics, Eastern Orthodox Christians, and members of the indigenous Bosnian Church, a sect considered heretical by both Rome and Constantinople. Tvrtko's long reign was to be marked by territorial expansion, diplomatic skill, and military success as he expanded his kingdom's borders to include not only Bosnia, but also parts of Herzegovina, Dalmatia, parts of Serbia, and even some coastal territories along the Adriatic Sea. Regardless, the death of Tvrtko saw Bosnia's fortunes reverse for the worse. Between the 1390s and the 1450s, Turkish raiders periodically plundered the kingdom as the central authority in the realm began to fracture due to noble rivalries, a fragmented religious landscape, and political instability. Ottoman sultans during this period also often extracted tribute from Bosnia as its petty rulers now desperately looked for Western aid. By 1461, King Stefan II Tomaszewicz had ascended to the Bosnian throne, and with promised military support from Hungary and the papacy, chose to sever diplomatic ties with Constantinople by refusing to pay his annual tribute to the Sultan. In response to the Bosnian king's actions, an outraged Mehmed gathered an army of 20,000 to 30,000 in the spring of 1463 and decided to invade Stefan's domains. The Ottoman army, under the Sultan and Grand Vizier, crossed into Bosnia through the Drina River and advanced rapidly throughout the local countryside. On May 19th, the army had arrived at the walls of Bobovac. The highly fortified town had been the royal seat of the kingdom, but in the weeks leading up to the invasion, the king had relocated his court further west to Jajce. Stefan believed that the high walls of Bobovac would bog down the invaders, giving him time to muster an army. Unfortunately for the Bosnian king, Mehmed had brought large cannons with him and began bombarding the town in full force. After only 3 days of terror, Bobovac surrendered when its garrison leader, Knez Radak, accepted a hefty bribe from the Grand Vizier.
Dang.
However, when the Bosnian leader had an audience with the Sultan, he was accused of betraying his liege lord in his time of need. Mehmed violently accused Radak of treason and ordered his beheading.
Dang.
After ordering his execution, it is reported that the Sultan shouted to Radak, "If you could not keep faith with a lord of your own faith, then how can you be expected to keep faith with me, a Turk?"
Completely justified. I actually agree with that reasoning. Like, you can't trust some people who betrayed their guys, because like if things ever go south for you, what's to say they won't do the same? So, yeah, I get that.
The sudden fall of Bobovats had been a massive shock to King Stefan, who began quickly writing letters to Hungary and the Pope for military assistance immediately. In the coming week, his half-mustered armies had been routed and destroyed in front of the walls of Kutz by the forces of the Grand Vizier. As many Bosnian nobles surrendered en masse, Stefan retreated to his well-fortified stronghold of Jajce as Hungarian and papal support was nowhere to be seen. Mehmed followed suit and besieged the Bosnian king at his fortress alongside his armies now renowned.
Yeah, we saw this with Serbia too. Like the papal states and freaking Hungary will be like, sure, we'll help you, but when things actually happen, they're nowhere to be found. So usually comes back to bite. First Serbia, now Bosnia. So, yep.
Artillery corps. After some brief resistance, the walls of Jajce were breached, and Stefan was captured and later beheaded alongside various members of his household and nobility. The swift Ottoman conquest of Bosnia was completed within only a matter of weeks, much to the shock of Europe.
Dang.
Bosnia's incorporation into the Ottoman Empire was to be steadfast, as a means not to alienate its ruling nobility during the annexation process. In 1465, the former king's first cousin, Matija Srbencic, was installed as an Ottoman puppet king to the region, followed by Matija Vojsalic in 1472 until he was deposed in 1476. The two men ruled a small area in the Lashva Valley, while Ottoman marcher lord Isabej Ishikovic ruled the rest of the region. Meanwhile, the southern rump state of Herzegovina, also known as the Duchy of St. Sava, continued to resist Ottoman rule under its duke Stefan Vukčić Kosača. But after his death in 1466, Stefan's youngest son, Vlatko Herzegovich, would take control of the duchy, but not before submitting to Ottoman vassalship. With that, a vast majority of Bosnia was now under direct or nominal Muslim rule.
Dang.
While Christendom was distracted by internal struggles, and Lesbos and Bosnia came under Ottoman control, the Albanian revolt continues to be a flame of resistance against the Sublime Porte.
Freaking Albania, bro. They are holding on for dear life, these guys. You have to give it a Skanderbeg. The man is great. I'm always happy to come back and see what he's up to.
Okay, if this under its steadfast and vigilant leader, Skanderbeg. In the wake of his great victory at the Battle of Albalena in 1457, Pope Calixtus III had given the Albanian leader the title of Athleta Christi, meaning Champion of Christ, while affirming that he was a stout bastion against the fury of the unbridled Turks. Further showcasing his now famous martial prowess, Skanderbeg embarked on an Italian expedition between 1460 and 1462, successfully defending the throne of his liege lord, Ferdinand I of Naples, during a local civil war. Upon his return...
Okay, the majority of the Albanian soldiers who took part in Skanderbeg's Italian campaign remained in Italy, forming the foundation of the Arborish people? Yeah, no, I'm not pronouncing that accurately.
The Albanian lord again swiftly demonstrated he had lost none of his edge against the Ottomans, defeating...
Yeah, the dude's still vigilant. He still got it. Literally went on a side quest to help in Italy while also holding off in the Balkans against the Ottomans. Dude's doing everything. Skanderbeg's a genius, bro. Like, very underrated man.
A three-pronged Turkish invasion into his domains during the summer of 1462. During the triple battles of Mocha, Polog and Levad, up to 20,000 Turks were killed, captured or wounded.
He's always inflicting these high casualties too, between 10 to like 30 or 50,000. It's like, dude, Skanderbeg, chill out. Holy crap, this is freaking Mehmed's bleeding ulcer, bro.
Further building up Skanderbeg's legend as a holy resistance fighter. Exhausted after many years of war, Mehmed agreed on a 10-year truce with Skanderbeg during the spring of 1463. However, this ceasefire was not destined to last until the end of the year, as it had finally dawned on Western leaders that Albania, and not Hungary, could be used to launch further crusades against the Turks. This realization began at the Council of Mantua in 1459, when Pope Pius II called for collective Christian action against an ever-expanding Ottoman Empire. Fearing the growth of Ottoman naval power in the Aegean Sea after the fall of Lesbos, Venice would not only renew its peace treaty with Albania in 1463, but also enter into an alliance with Philip III of Burgundy and Matthias of Hungary against Mehmed with papal mediation. With high hopes, a crusader host was planned to be mustered at the port town of Ancona, where it would sail off to the aid of Albania come the following year. With the prospect of receiving active support for the first time in his struggle against the Turks, Skanderbeg responded to the papal summons for a crusade by declaring a holy war on the Ottomans. In the grand strategic plan
Yeah, definitely. I don't know, man. The past crusades against the Ottomans have been complete crap shows, and usually didn't really give any lasting victories. Even under John Hunyadi, like, they didn't make that. I mean, granted, they did bleed out the Ottomans a lot, but like, they didn't stop the momentum of the Ottomans at all. They still went on to keep growing. So again, like, this definitely does seem like a lifeline for Skanderbeg, but considering how things have gone with all the past crusades we've seen in season 1 and 2, I don't think it's gonna really matter. Like, you know, I could be wrong, but I don't know.
By the Pope, the armies of Albania and Burgundy would attack the Turks from the west, while the Hungarians would advance from the north and the Venetians from the south. However, such a venture was to be fleeting. By the summer of 1464, Crusader contingents arriving in Ancona had to deal with plague, and the Crusade's main political backer, Pius II, had died, thus hampering any thoughts of holy war against Mehmed.
Oh, that sucks. Even Skanderbeg literally was like, I'm all in, guys. Let me declare war right now. And then they're like, well, have fun with that. Again, like I keep saying, that it's a noticeable trend this episode, this series or season, that whenever Hungary or the Papal States offer support, they never fully even make it there. Wow, Skanderbeg's on his own again, basically.
With Burgundy backing out of the crusade at the last second, and Hungary uninterested in going into full-on war so soon after its struggle against Austria, Venice and Albania were left to deal with the Ottoman menace on their own.
They say have Venice.
Wanting to go on the offensive before the Sultan could retaliate for breaking the truce, Skanderbeg led an army of 12,000 Albanians and 1,000 Venetians, with which he invaded and plundered Ottoman northern Macedonia in the fall of 14...
This really sucks for Skanderbeg. Like, he probably could have had many more years of peace to rebuild his strength, but he got all these unfortunate events with the Pope dying and the Crusade basically disintegrating. It's like really sad. Now he got himself stuck into another war that he probably could have like used many more years of peace to build up strength. So this sucks for him, bro. I feel bad for him. I like Skanderbeg. Like, I feel kind of bad for him now. Like, it all kind of blew up in his face. Now he has to... I mean, he's still a genius on his own, but, like, you know, I like wondering how long can he keep going until Mehmed. Mehmed doesn't seem to have personally gotten involved in going directly to Albania, though. Like, I'm wondering if he's ever going to actually go there personally and try to handle this.
64. In yet another ambush, this time near Ohrid, the Albanian lord was able to rout and destroy yet another Ottoman provincial army, inflicting over 10,000 Turkish casualties. The following spring, another Ottoman provincial army, under the command of Balaban Bada, invaded Albania with a force of over 18,000 Akinci raiders. Although defeated at Baikal, the Albanian Devshirme child turned Ottoman Pasha had managed to inflict heavy losses to Skanderbeg, including the capture of over 20 of his military officers, like the pardoned Moisi Arianiti. After many weeks of being paraded back to Constantinople, the Albanian officers were then executed, and their corpses were thrown to the dogs of the capital.
Dang.
In the summer of 1465, two more Ottoman provincial armies invaded Albania in a two-pronged assault, led again by Balaban Bada and Shekup Pasha. In the first battle of the campaign at Mechad, Balaban was able to surround and heavily injure Skanderbeg, but not before an Albanian cavalry charge routed his army. The two men would meet again a few months later at Baikal, which saw the repeat of the first battle, a Pyrrhic Albanian victory. A few days later...
Yeah, Balaban's doing pretty... I mean, granted, he's losing technically, but like... before this, Skanderbeg was pretty decisively crushing Ottoman armies. Here he's actually taking more losses in these victories, so I guess by virtue of that, Balaban's doing much better than many other Ottomans have against Skanderbeg. But again, the Ottomans have manpower. Like, Skanderbeg needs to keep winning decisive victories. Like, Pyrrhic victories with heavy casualties is only gonna is not gonna go well for him. So yeah, Skanderbeg's definitely, I'm starting to see him now get jumped, and like I just feel like the manpower is the real problem with maybe Albania, at least compared to the Ottomans, you get me? Who I think can keep throwing men, you know?
Kashari, Skanderbeg would again ambush another Ottoman army and capture and kill its commander, Jakub Pasha.
Holy crap.
In retaliation for the execution of the Albanian officers the previous year, all Turkish captives on the campaign were executed, thus resulting in over 15,000 casualties for the Sublime Porte in only 3 months.
Holy crap, dude. The amount of Ottoman bodies that Skanderbeg has gotten, like tens of thousands of Ottomans he's murdered. The dude is going for it, holy crap. And he's been doing it for like decades now, right? So, wow.
As the Ottomans were dealt defeat once more in the forested mountains of Albania, their forces in Greece had to deal with the forces of the Doge. Although Turkish troops were unexpectedly able to capture the fortress town of Argos in 1463, a Venetian counterattack later that year saw forces under Alvise Loredan retake the town.
Still though, Venice is pretty powerful in its own right. Like, Venice and Genoa were pretty prominent in the medieval age and then, like, to the Renaissance, so, you know, it's not like Venice can't carry its own weight. I feel like they're at least a decent ally to have, a pretty good one for Skanderbeg to be a thorn in the Ottoman side, so, you know, I'm really interested in seeing how Venice keeps going.
And start advancing into Ottoman territory in the Morea. The ruins of the Hexamilian Wall across the Isthmus of Corinth were reoccupied and rebuilt, while the Acrocorinth fortress was put under siege. However, with limited men and resources, this Christian expedition was to meet an abrupt end, as a surprise Turkish sally-out operation from the fortress town would rout the Venetians back to the Hexamilion. With the arrival of Grand Vizier Mahmud Pasha later that year, Ottoman forces would again retake Argos and put their efforts into raiding the remaining Venetian possessions in the Morea. Although his armies were victorious on land, Mehmed II was more focused on his naval capabilities, as he was quoted saying, "Venice is a serpent in the sea, beautiful from afar, but dangerous when near." As a result of this concern, he ordered the construction of the twin fortresses of Kilidilbar and Sultania at the mouth of the Dardanelles Strait to safeguard his capital from the superior naval forces of the Doge. The Sultan also ordered the construction of a new naval yard in Constantinople, dubbed the Kadirga Limani, to increase naval strength at sea. Nevertheless, news from Bosnia would call forth Mehmed's attention later that year, as King Matthias invaded the region with his newly established Black Army. Although not fully committed to a full-on war with Constantinople, the Hungarian king took advantage of Turkish preoccupation in the Morea and the Aegean to secure his southern borders in Bosnia. The fortress of Yeizer fell after a 3-month siege in the winter of 1463, and its garrison under Yusuf Bey defected.
Yeah, definitely a lot of headaches for Mehmed. Albania, Venice, now this. Like, he's definitely getting jumped on all sides.
To the king's army. This sudden foreign threat prompted the Sultan to march on Bosnia again the following year with an army of 20,000 troops. By the summer, Mehmed's host had reached Yeizer in full force. But in spite of besieging the fortress for over a month, the vigilant Hungarian defense held out and inflicted heavy Turkish casualties. The Hungarians, emboldened by their defense of Yeizer, attempted to press their advantage further. King Matthias advanced into eastern Bosnia and besieged the fortress of Zvornik, a key Ottoman stronghold on the Drina River linking Bosnia to Serbia. The king aimed to capture the fortress and sever Ottoman lines of communication, thereby destabilizing Ottoman control of Bosnia. Hearing the news of the Black Army crossing the Sava River, led by their king, Mehmed decided not to risk an open battle and retreated to friendly territory. The siege began in the late summer of 1464, with Matthias bringing a considerable Hungarian army to bear against the fortress. Initially, the Hungarians pressed hard, expecting to overwhelm the Ottoman defenders and secure a swift victory. However, the garrison at Zvornik, composed of seasoned Ottoman soldiers, mounted a determined resistance. The defenders skillfully used the fortress's natural position on the Drina and its fortifications to withstand repeated Hungarian assaults. As the fighting dragged on, the Hungarians found themselves in increasingly precarious circumstances. Ottoman relief forces under Mihalolu Ali Bey approached from the east, threatening to trap Matthias's army between the garrison and his reinforcements. Harassed by counterattacks and struggling with supply shortages as the fall approached, the Hungarians suffered mounting casualties. Despite initial optimism, it became clear that the fortress would not fall easily. Facing the prospect of encirclement, Matthias was forced to abandon the siege and retreat from Bosnia. The siege of Zvornik ended in an Ottoman victory, marking a turning point in the 1464 campaigns. Although the Hungarians had managed to hold Jedza after Mehmed's failed siege earlier that year, their inability to capture Zvornik ensured that the Ottomans retained control over eastern Bosnia and its vital links to Serbia. As a result, Bosnia emerged from the campaigns of 1463 and 1464 divided, with the Ottomans controlling its heartland, while Hungary held on to Jedza and the northern fortresses. For decades afterward, this contested borderland remained a theatre of constant warfare, shaping the destiny of Bosnia as a frontier province of two competing powers. The winter of 1464 to 1465 was to be the lowest point in Mehmed II's reign. The Sultan spent the winter in his imperial palace, forging new war plans for the coming spring. However, to his consternation, his household troops were long exhausted after years of hard military campaigning and long marches in the Balkans and Anatolia. Consequently, they were on the brink of rebellion. The Sultan himself had also been in poor physical condition after his Bosnian campaign, growing so ill that for the first time in his reign, he spent over a year in Constantinople. The illness itself was most likely gout, or inflammation of the joints, a condition that would flare up during the harsh conditions of his military campaigns. As a result of his army's fatigue and his health condition, Mehmed set aside the year 1465 as a rest period, during which he demobilized many of his provincial and household troops. Instead of engaging in war, the Sultan now devoted his time to the development of his capital city, and to discussing philosophy and history with the European intellectuals of his court.
Okay, so that's very interesting. Yeah, I thought Mehmed not facing the Black Army was very interesting. I was wondering it's due to Black Army's infamy and prowess, but seeing that there's a lot of issues going on with him. The dude's been in war, like a constant state of fighting for a long time, so I guess finally settling down and like recouping is definitely not such a bad thing for him at the moment. Yeah, I'm gonna end the video right here, and then I'll continue tomorrow with the next part. So yeah, guys, I'll see you then.